There's way too many people pushing ideas that give you nothing but a delayed life plan. In this video, we're going to focus on the strategy and these sub-strategies to get you there ASAP. Well, I haven't caught any fish. Maybe I'll catch some birds. So what I'm really talking about here is the lifestyle design, designing your life in such a way that brings you happiness. Now, there's a lot of concepts we talk about here, and they're so simple that it's tempting to shrug them off and say, yeah, but Frank. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to address some of those yeah buts instead of just plopping the strategy in front of you in your plate and you turning up your nose on it. So I can tell you all of the yeah buts, all of the answers, so that you can begin to see and formulate a picture of how this can come about for you. There's way too many people pushing ideas that give you nothing but a delayed life plan. In this video, we're going to focus on the strategy and these sub-strategies to get you there ASAP. Sub-strategy number one. The basic concept, when you grind them down to the simplistic, it really comes down to, back before the age we live in now, the simple concept was amass a certain amount of assets. It may take different people different lengths of time, usually depending on who it is. If you're a wheeler dealer business person, it could be 3 years, but most people don't do it that quick. Let's just say, give it an average of every 10 to 20 years. Could be longer for people in employment. And with compound interest and all that, you could wait around and do it that way. Or you could do it partially that way. You could do part of it that way. You could get started if you're just starting out. If this is just the very, very beginning for you, you could start out that way just to get an initial nest egg. And the next step you want to be moving into is, and remember, these are sub-strategies that lead up to the main simple idea. And the simple idea, you hear about passive income, right? For example, you can put $1 million into, let's just say, for example purposes, people tell you, well, you have to have $2 million to have $75,000 a year, 4% rule, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, if you had a solid activity that brought you in the amount of income that you need, the same amount of income that that million or 2 million would have to have, that large figure would be throwing off. If you had that amount coming in from a passive income activity, the thing about passive income that people don't understand is, I think that people look for passive income that is 100% passive, and that's not the way to do it. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good goal, and I'm not saying that a person shouldn't strive to have 100%, but I think that you could have partially 100% perhaps, and just work at it in steps. But it's okay to have mostly passive income. I'll give you an example. A lot of times people think and feel that they hate their jobs, but I've seen people come out of that have embraced the strategy that I'm telling you about today and realize that when they ratchet it back, and there's a couple tweaks, there's some tweaks you have to do. And one of them is that you can't be selling your time by the hour. Okay, now I say can't. I'm a person that doesn't like saying can't, because there are other strategies for someone that does sell their time by the hour, which I'll talk about in a different video. But generally speaking, when you're talking about getting from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time, it comes down to having that passive income that would equal having to have a large sum of money throwing off the 4%, 8%, whatever it is. And the key is that it doesn't have to be 100% passive. So people say they hate their job, but what they really do, because I've talked to people, what they really hate is the stress of doing the same thing over and over for too many hours. And so what you've got is a strategy here. In modern terminology, it would be called productizing your service. How it's done is you turn what you do perhaps on an hourly wage, and you may have to build your skills a little bit more, and you sell it as a service and you package it as a service, and that way your hourly rate goes way up. People need to grasp, a lot of people, you can tell they're still thinking about that hourly rate thing because they want to know. People will ask, well, where can I go get this work that pays more hourly? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying whatever it is, skill that you have, or if you don't have, you'll get the skill so that you can turn that skill into a packaged product, productized service. Well, that means you standardize the amount of money you charge, therefore getting outside of that hourly thing. Now that's the first step. Anyway, in a nutshell, I'm going to give you a recap here. So you want to take your skills and be able to package them into a productized service, or literally sell. Nowadays you can even sell a product, and do it in such a way that you're either able to do it in a mostly passive way, or if that's not possible, for a lot less hours in a day, because you were able to up the amount that you charge for your service. And that in and of itself will put you, now a lot of people will say, yeah, but Frank, that's risky, I'd rather, but again, this is a decision of the delayed life plan or not. I mean, there are other principles that we can talk about in a different place to reduce the risk, because that's the first thing that comes to mind, but that's risky. And the thing is that depending on money is risky. So what I'm really talking about here is the lifestyle design, designing your life in such a way that brings you happiness. And to each his own. Everybody's going to seek out and achieve their own happiness. That's one thing. It's not about how this guy over here is doing it, or there's a lot of copycatting going on, and so instead of saying, well, where can I find a job that's going to pay me more, we should be saying, pay me more per hour. We should be saying, let me outline my skills. What is it that I do at my job? What am I really being paid for? What skill am I being paid for? And how can I package that as a service? You see what I'm saying? And then start offering that service. And then once you get started with that, you're either already doing that, or you still need to get to that level. And if you think you can't do that, no worries. There are other things that can be done with products. One way or another, though, it comes down to having a passive or semi-passive or mostly passive income activity that generates the kind of income that gives you freedom. And I really do think that everyone can do it. And the reason is we use principles of minimalism and frugality and simplicity in everything we do. And that includes how our mostly passive income comes about. We use all of those principles in our daily life. Simplicity and minimalism and frugality don't only apply to how you spend money, they apply to everything we do. And so when we live our life more intentionally, we design our day in such a way that all of a sudden we have more time on our hands to reflect on things and how we do them, and come up with solutions encompassing or utilizing the principles of minimalism, frugality, and intentionality, which is exactly what I've been talking about in this whole video. So this principle is not about the wheeler-dealer type that owns, 12 businesses and has everybody else running them, and he still only works 4 hours a day. While that is an accurate picture, that tends to be a sort of minority subset of the population. What I'm talking about is reducing it to a more simplistic size, and so that everybody can do it. And it's like when you reduce things, it's like if you're trying to beat the record in how fast somebody runs a mile, or if you're trying to be championship in the world in boxing, you know that that's going to take a certain level of activity. But if you just want to be able to say, you know, ride your bike every day to the grocery store, or perform simpler feats and shorter feats and tasks like that, then everybody can do them. And so we reduce things to a conversation that applies to everyone, and everyone can be successful with the concepts. And here they are. I hope you got something out of that. Let me know in your comments what your thoughts are. Thanks for coming to the video, and have a wonderful day.